Hello and welcome to this week's reading vlog where I pretty much once again read whatever I like. I am on a bit of a challenge to try and whittle my TBR down. So I don't know if anyone else feels this way. Having a long TBR kind of stresses me out. There's so many books that I need to read and I'm constantly adding and I'm just feeling like I'm not detracting faster than I am adding. So I did cull it already. I think I was around 100 books and I went through, and any books that are not at my library, so I searched them all up, and obviously there are some that are not there. I've deleted them because I'm not going to go and buy books I've never read before. So that got rid of a lot. I've also gone through and deleted ones that are about teenagers that aren't fantasy, because once again this week I picked up a book called Speak, and it is about a schoolgirl who is raped and sort of how she deals with that. She loses her voice and then she finds her voice again. It wasn't for me. It was written in a sort of stream of consciousness style where you're just in her head and her thoughts are just coming out. And whilst I do think that it is rather accurate in terms of what's going on inside a teenage girl's mind, I didn't want to be inside a teenage girl's mind. I did go on Goodreads before I decided to finish it, and a few people were saying that they found the way that the rape was handled problematic and not the best example of possibly how to deal with being raped. So I'm glad I did DNF that, but that made me go through my TBR and really take out any books that were YA that are not fantasy, because I've aged out of that category and I don't want to be reading it anymore. So I've already started my week off with a DNF, and I think this will be my era of DNFs. Trying to get this TBR down. I'm just going to be real strict from now on, because sometimes I do push through to 50%, which I've done again, which leads me on to my next book, which is Darkwater Daughter. I listened to this on audio. I think it was like a 16-hour book and I listened to 8 hours of it. It was just incredibly slow. So in this book, you've got a young woman who's a storm singer and a man who's a sooth. He can sort of find people through the spiritual world, and is a bit of a tracker, and they're pirates on the seas, and it should be exciting, right? Halfway through, so 8 hours in, this book must be thick. I put the number of pages up above here. 8 hours in and nothing much has happened. They're both still on boats, on separate boats. They have a few meetings because obviously they're meant to be love interests. And that's it. They're sort of both hunting this real bad boy pirate. 8 hours in, that's all that's happened. And you just go through this circular thought patterns. Like the woman is thinking the same thoughts over and over again. I don't want to end up being a slave, held on a boat so I can sing them through the storms. I need to get away, but I need to find my mum. But I don't want to be trapped on a boat and I need to get away and I need to find... Guys, it was so repetitive. And like I said, there was just nothing to it for me. Didn't care about the characters, didn't care for the writing. There was no pacing. The romance was non-existent. So I did DNF that eventually, but that's at least 4 hours of my life I will not get back. I'm going hard with the DNFs now. I'm really sticking to the 50 pages. If my interest isn't piqued, I've got to get rid of it, because also too, who wants an average rating of 3 out of hundreds of books that I read a year? I don't want the average rating to be a 3, you know? So I have to be more selective with what I'm choosing to exchange hours of my life for. At the end of the day, I am paying for it, you know, with my mortal time. So we'll see if we can get it down, because like I said, I would really love to whittle it all the way down, and then I can just read whatever comes my way organically, you know, from some book that I've heard someone else recommend or some book that comes into the library, and I'm not just continually adding to this tower of tomes that is kind of stressing me out. So I have also listened to another book. So I'm starting this week off already having read some books, because it's been a few days where I didn't film. I had my kids at home, they were unwell. So when that happens, I don't have time to do stuff like this. So I also listened to Wild by Cheryl Strayed. Okay, so to sum this book up, you have a lady whose mum dies from cancer. She then blows up her marriage via numerous infidelities. She decides to pretty much paint the town red, and whilst doing this develops an addiction to heroin, and then decides, I know what the answer is. I'm going to hike the PCT trail, and decides to just embark on this journey with zilch preparation. Just decides to go on it. Not prepared whatsoever. Does she hike the trail? Partially. She partially hikes the trail while banging various numerous dudes along the way and dipping back in and out of her heroin addiction. So yeah, it's not the sort of inspiring story I was expecting, and the fact that she didn't actually hike the entire trail, I feel is a bit of false advertising, because you're thinking this woman's just gone and hiked this incredibly difficult trail as a woman on her own, and it's like, no, it was snowing and she didn't have snow gear, so she got in a car and drove around that whole section, and things like that happen. There's a lot of like, oh, these men want to rape me vibes repeatedly when she comes across men on the trail. So it wasn't for me. I did not love it. I did not like the woman. Wasn't my cup of tea. Wasn't what I was expecting when I was getting into it. So the book that I'm currently reading is The Master and the Margarita. So I'll touch back in when I've hit 50 pages if I'm going to continue, because I'm going to go out to a cafe today, so I probably will get to 50 pages. It is a translated Russian work about a devil. I think it's meant to be a retelling of, is it Pontius Pilate? I can't remember. I'll write it up, what it's meant to be sort of like a retelling of. But the idea, the premise interested me. Whether or not I get into it, we shall see. It is quite a big book as well. So, but like I said, I'm sticking hard to my 50 pages and then deciding. So I've got that, and I'm just going to randomly choose books on my TBR, whatever I feel like reading, and hopefully bust out as much as I can this week. But besides that, today I've also got to get to the library and pick up some new books, return some old ones. I might head to a cafe because I haven't been this week. Normally I go earlier, but like I said, my kids were home. They've got book week this week, so I've given them some money, and I'll see if they found any books that tickled their fancy, and I'll show them later on. But besides that, I'll touch base with you later in the day. Hello guys, hello. So I have read a lot of books in a short amount of time because I am trying to get my TBR down. So I've just pretty much substituted all my other spare time activities for reading. So let me just tell you about everything that I have read. Okay, so the first one is After She Wrote Him. So this caught my attention, this cover. Okay, so this book, you've got a lady who's a writer, and she's writing about a male character who's also a writer. But that male character is writing about a woman who is a writer. And it's sort of like, did she write him or did he write her? What's going on? The way that the book is formatted did my head in. So basically you would just continue switching from her POV to the male character writer's POV without any sort of change. So this could be her, and then this is him, and then this is her, and then this is him. So it was just too much, and you would have to be like, oh wait, okay, I'm in his point of view. Oh wait, no, I'm in her point of view. And it was very aggravating to me and very confusing. So basically I read 50 or so pages, and then I went on Goodreads and I was looking at people's worst reviews, because that's what I tend to do. I'll be like, all right, what are they complaining about? Is it the same issues that I'm having already? And basically it was enough for me to decide to DNF it. I did read the ending, and they use a plot device that I really don't like. I find it very lazy, and it's not clever, and it's, to summarize, like, oh, which one is real? What's actually going on? It was not for me whatsoever. So I'm actually very happy that I DNF'd this. And then I picked up this book, We Are the Song. My kids actually loved this cover, so I grabbed it. It is middle grade. Now, I don't tend to rate middle grades on Goodreads unless I'm rating them 4 and above to boost the ratings. I would rate this a 2. So I have read absolutely phenomenal middle grade. Last week I had a 5 star. So there are middle grades that I just think are amazing. This is definitely young. I would say it's so simple that it could be younger than middle grade, but the way it's written is a bit adult. So you've got this, I think she's 12 years old, something like that, girl, and she's the voice of a goddess. So through her songs, it creates magic, and depending what the song's about, it can say a song of healing will heal people. And she's paired with a composer, so someone who writes the music. She's paired with this 17-year-old boy. Oh, you hate the 17-year-old boy. So he's very abusive towards her. He's financially abusive, so he threatens to like not give her money if she doesn't do what he asks. He condescends to her. She basically finds herself with this urge to write her own songs, to compose her own songs. But that's against the church's orders, and that's not how things are done, and she must remember her place and serve her goddess. And it was just infuriating. She's very meek, and she doesn't want to step a toe out of line. She ends up being manipulated and abused by other people in power to sing for them, to do things that I would say against the goddess's code of doing no harm. But should I have DNF'd this? Yes, I should have. Why did I keep reading it? I don't know, right? I guess I thought maybe it would get good. It does not. It does not. It's very, like I said, it's very simple. There is no real world building at all. It just is a nothing kind of story. You know, when you read those books and you're like, that was crap. This sucked. And it did. And people are forgiven when they should not be forgiven. She's just very naive, and I guess it's because she's so little and young. And there were dark themes in this. There's a lot of, like I said, abuse and physical torture and things like that. And it was not a good story. It's not a story showing more morals or ethics, really. It's not a book I would give to children. You know, there's nothing substantial about it. There's no like proper lessons to be learned. I would not use this main character as an example of a role model. So the only good thing about this book was the cover, pretty much. Like I said, the writing left a lot to be desired, and she doesn't think or speak like a 12-year-old. It's clearly a 12-year-old written by an adult. So I did not like this book. Okay, and then I was reading The Master and Margarita, which was a Russian novel set in the 1930s, but it was written in the 1960s. It's about the Soviet Union in that time, and it sort of is, it tells you that it's about these two authors who are talking to each other and discussing whether or not Jesus existed. And then you've got a devil with his two familiars. You've got a talking black cat and a naked witch. And that's what drew me to the book. I'm like, a devil walking around with a naked witch and a talking black cat, sign me up. Now, whilst I found this book to be humorous, I actually did find it funny. I didn't like any of the characters. It was very slow. There was not a lot going on. It did flash back to the past, to Pontius's time when he executed Jesus Christ. And I'm not sure what the point of that story intermixed with the modern day Russia was. I couldn't correlate the two. Not a lot was happening. And I don't know, it was a bit meh. So I decided to read some reviews once again, because I think it's like a 500-page book. And the way I was feeling about it was reflected there. So I decided to DNF it. I didn't want to push through. If anybody's got book recommendations that include like the devil as a character, but that are actually good, and the devil's actually sort of tempting people to do things, and please let me know, because I'm kind of in the mood for that at the moment, but it's hard to find books like that. I don't really want just romance, you know. I want something with a bit of plot, a bit of substance. But yeah, let me know if you've got any recommendations. And then I read the Subtle Body Encyclopedia of, what was it? Energetic Anatomy. I wouldn't call this an encyclopedia, guys. It's not an encyclopedia, it's basically an index. So this book touches briefly upon, say, Western science, so things like the laws of physics, including the unified field theory, and things like human anatomy, so very much mainstream science subject and matter. And then it also touches upon holistic practices, so like things like Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, Incan practices, Egyptian energy work, just anything and everything. So this, but like I said, it just touches, it just briefly mentions it and then moves on. So it's a good idea. It's a good book if you want to find out what are some other energy practices in the world, or you say you just want to read briefly about epigenetics and muscle tissue and all that sort of thing. Like I said, it's very concise. So I think it was just mislabeled. Encyclopedia it is not, but there were some alternative practices that I had never heard of before. So that was cool. That's piqued my interest. I'll read more about those. But yeah, otherwise it's not what I was looking for. You know, I was looking for something substantial. But yeah, it does do both Western and alternative. So it touches upon both. And then I read The Naturals. So in this book, you've got a woman who is a natural profiler. So she just has this innate ability to profile a human being, to tell what they're like and how they think based upon how they look, how they talk, how they move. When she was a child, she discovered a crime scene where her mother perhaps was murdered. It's remained an open cold case kind of thing. And she ends up being picked up by the FBI and put into this special program of teenagers who are natural liars or natural profilers or natural investigators, and they all live together in a house. Look, it's a bit, it feels a bit dumb. It's teenagers as well. So look, that being said, it's a very easy read. It's one of those books you just fly through because the writing is addictive and it's fast paced, you know, there is romance involved. There's a love triangle actually, which is not my thing. I absolutely hate love triangles. So two men are vying for her that are also in this special division of the FBI. A serial killer is involved. I don't like reading about serial killers and their fetishes about their murder victims and being in their head while they slice them up. That's not my jam. Even though, like, that being said, it's not very graphic. This book is okay. There wasn't anything really clever about it. I prefer my thrillers to just be so intricately woven that at the end, when you see how all of the threads intertwine, it like blows your mind. I like that kind of thing. Like, oh my God, wow, like that and that interconnect. But this was just very obvious and not particularly clever, and therefore kind of wasn't for me. I gave it 3.5 because, like I said, it was still fun. It was entertaining, but it wasn't anything amazing, and I won't be continuing on with the series. Okay, now we're going to my final book for this week, and it's To Poison a King. So, okay, I've given it 4.5 stars. And the reason it wasn't higher is because of the beginning. So the first half of the book is a slog. It is slow. So you start with the main character when she's 14. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second, but she's the daughter of the court's kind of apothecary. Her mother is the royal healer, but there's kind of magic involved. And basically the mother decides to assassinate the king, sends her daughter to deliver the poison. He miraculously doesn't die. He is severely injured though. And the mother and the husband decide to pack up and leave the daughter there to take the blame. They literally tell her, you're younger, so they'll go easy on you, but you got to stay here and take the fall. See ya. So this happens in the first chapter. And I'm like, damn girl. Anyway, so she goes back expecting to be, you know, tried for treason and attempted murder on the king, but they don't suspect her whatsoever. The king's mother is like, where's your mum? We need her to heal him. So the young girl, Celine, says, oh, she's gone to deliver a baby, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, then you're going to have to do for now, help heal him. So the king has been kind of maimed. He cannot walk. He's basically just like trapped in his body. So she goes to the king. The king is an a-hole from the beginning. He's 23, so there's a 9-year age gap. Okay, and he is very averse to human touch, does not want to be touched. But like I said, he's very arrogant, very rude, very self-centered. And it goes through the next 4 years of them building a friendship, building trust, her coming into her own, being confident in her abilities and skills. And I was sitting there and I'm like, why? Why would you purposefully write her as 14, so young, him as 23 at the beginning of their relationship? Like, you could have made her 16 and him 20, you know, and then showed 2 years progression of them forming their friendship and relationship and the natural growth of both of their characters, and then have her be 18 and he's 22. That would have been much more palatable. So because of that factor, because look, during that 14 to 18 years of age, There is no romantic things happening in that point, but it just gives you an ick factor. You know, there's a bit of ick there, because even though when she's 18, he's 27. That's what brought down the rating for me. So I hated that part. And like I said, it was so slow going. It really did show you the progression over time. And I'm like, yes, okay, this is a slow burn and you're laying the foundation, but it could have been done in a much faster method. Improve the pace, guys. I'm really not loving these very drawn out slow books. I feel like they're just trying to hit a page number, and I don't know what that's about. Like, I don't really feel like the more pages, the better. It should really be, how is the pace? How is the flow? How much can you get into it? Don't pack things with so much extraneous filler that it kills it, you know? So, but that being said, the next half of the book, once she turns 18, things kick off and it's like, woo, what a ride. I loved it personally. That last half of the book, just, I was devouring it. I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? And do you hate the mother? Oh yeah, she gives real Mother Gothel vibes, but even worse. Mummy Dearest on cocaine, you know? So I hated the mother. Loved Celine, thought she was fantastic. The king does change as he grows up, so he's much less of a dick, which, yay, points for that. His name is Elias. I did like their romance, I will say. I was there for it. I was intrigued about the world. There does seem to be magic at play, but it's not greatly expanded upon. But there are things like there's this magic river which is able to return you to the past, and these shadow priests, and it was very fascinating. So I've given it 4.5 because I said I loved it in the end after she turns 18. Before then, it's not the best. But I will continue reading other books in the series, but I just hope that the author doesn't do this age gap thing and have so much time spent before things actually start happening, because it's not like it's a huge character study. You know, I'm not reading this book just for the character study or the vibes. Like, it's a fantasy book. There has to be some plot. You know, things have to occur. So, because I definitely wouldn't call it cozy. You know, it's not a sweet, wholesome, cozy, good time book. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I was actually not thinking much of it. I went in there with no expectations, and like I said, I ended up loving it. But yeah, that first half, I don't know, bruh. But everything else, chef's kiss. So I'm happy once again to end the week with it's almost 5-star rate. But like, man, anything over a 4, I am blissed out. My current average rating is literally like 3.53. So we're getting there. I do have to be better, like I said, at DNFing books. Sometimes I am investing a bit too much time, and I'm trying to get better at it. Like this one, why did I persevere? It was very clear from the beginning that it wasn't for me. But I think because it's easy to read, and I only spent, I don't even know how long I spent. I would say like 2 hours or so, but still 2 hours could have been spent on another amazing book. So hopefully we'll get better at doing that. But that's everything that I read this week. I hope that you're having an entertaining morning, afternoon, or evening. And as always, stay wild, star child.